So this very mouthful title is something that I didn't think twice. So sorry. Um, as as I mentioned before, I feel like we're at a place where we're reaching like um, analysis paralysis because there are so many things out there. So at least for me, that's a bit of an anxiety of having a lot of stuff to learn and know and use and so on. So yeah. Right. Well, the signal to noise ratio is just um, uh, like can you find the right stuff in between all the other unimportant stuff? Right. So let me. So in the beginning, there was the LAMP stack, or at least not technically not really the beginning, more of like my beginning, because I was born in the 90s, so like most folks have the belief that most of the important things have appeared during my lifetime. So sorry to the ones that are from the 80s and 70s and so on. So a while back there was the LAMP stack mostly, which obviously stands for Linux, Apache, HP, and the barrier to entry for that was a tad bit steep because you had to know some Linux server administration and MySQL and using the Apache web server and PHP to like have an e-commerce website or whatever. But after you were able to put these things together, well, yeah, the road was more or less peachy because, well, a lot of folks were also using lamps, so it wasn't that hard to find the right engineer to take over this. And like, that if you had a web server, you would be using LAMP. It was, you didn't really have to think too much about this stuff. And yeah, so sometime in the well 80s, but starting mostly during the 90s, the open source software movement started and grew, and 2000 GitHub also launched, and sometime later also the open source software really big, which is mostly a good thing because that means that democratization of software. So meaning that everyone can and publish software, which is great because yes, a lot of folks like to code. Although I also like to sometimes cosplay as a developer. I'm not quite there yet. After a while, we got to Kind of this. This is obviously I'm not the only one that's um taking a stab at the CNCF landscape. But so the cloud native, sorry, um, yeah, the cloud native compute foundation is a subset of the Linux Foundation, and they're backed by some of the big tech companies, so Fang and some other big tech there. And one of the good things is that having Google and Facebook and Netflix and all those companies' engineers working on the same tools and having them open source means that we get to a standard, and that's great because software is a doesn't have that much of a history compared to other engineering disciplines like civil engineering or um, um, some others, which I guess I'm blanking right now. But also, you get to a point where it's really difficult to know exactly what what you have to use, and especially if you're joining the industry. So, or have you joined the industry in the last couple of years? It's kind of nerve-wracking, you know. So yeah, I felt that this is something that obviously I'm not really an expert, but I feel like this is a conversation that we more or less have to have. Right. So there's also a book called The Paradox of Choice, and the most quotable quote there is autonomy and freedom of choice are critical to our well-being, and choice is critical to freedom and autonomy. Nonetheless, the modern people have more choice than any group of people has ever had before, and thus presumably more freedom and autonomy. We don't seem to be benefiting from it psychologically because, as I was saying, it's overwhelming. It's kind of overwhelming to me right now to actually look at this graph, but yeah, moving on. So, yeah, in general, having choices, although having like a without any way of stopping that isn't really helpful for ourselves. So because most well, and this had some flack for this, but a lot of technical solutions are more or less create, read, update, destroy applications. So you don't need for everything and all the machine learning frameworks, tools, and so on. So yeah, there are some which some of us might encounter, but overall, there are a lot of the same motions. I think that this is not really a software issue per se, but more of a people-aware issue. In that, yeah, there are a lot of frameworks, libraries, tools, books, workshops, and so on to binge and you know ingest, understand, recall, and so on. Yeah, I think that we really need to be dosing our knowledge intake. And one way of doing that is through something like attention restoration theory. There are several books on that, but it's more or less the idea of, just going outside and looking at the trees in between coding. Obviously, I'm oversimplifying here, but it's because when working and coding and so on, you're really focused on this. You sometimes need periods of soft fascination, meaning that you need to pay attention to stuff in your environment, but you don't have to use that much energy and strain yourself so much. You can look up soft fascination and attention restoration theory and so on. There are a lot better to read and hear on that. Right. So yeah, it's useful. Enjoying nature whenever you're not coding a distributed system or doom scrolling Reddit. Although this is probably a given, hopefully. So yeah, I think that also is a sort of PSA. Yeah, and the thing is that a lot of tools here are kind of abstractions over abstraction. So there are several layers of abstraction. I think there was a XKCD has a lot of funny webcomics. This is came out just the Image Magic issue a while back. But basically, there are a lot of unknown dependencies, or at least content dependencies, and things that are several layers back. So my belief is that a lot of these a lot of the modern tools are more or less abstractions over some first principles. So, for instance, if you have a pretty good understanding of Linux and networking, then you'll do just fine using Kubernetes and all the container orchestration stuff, because those are more or less built on top of this, and also with a using React when, for instance, you would be fine just with Petit Vue or whatever. So a lot of this stuff can be overwhelming. I, for instance, am overwhelmed almost daily. And yeah, the first principles and using those, let's say, primitives, and deeply grasping them. So, like I said, if you know Linux and some networking, then Docker, Kubernetes, and all that stuff wouldn't be too hard to understand. And all the other abstractions, like AWS ECS, which is Amazon's attempt at simplifying a Kubernetes as a service. All right, so yeah, and also when thinking about technology choices, there's also that very invisible yet important link between the organization and culture and the software architecture that you end up with. Because, so for instance, and this is a very easy example and easy thing to complain about. Take uh, for example, so for, I think most people know, but Amazon has this two pizza team approach where to size their teams according to this enough people to have a pizza, have two pizzas. And that means that each AWS service team can be their own product team and can move independently of any other team. But the problem comes with not having something like a contract first development where each team moves completely independently, and that means that each product AWS service moves independently, and there are discrepancies. For instance, if you're trying to delete a resource in AWS, it's probably a different modal dialog that will ask you if you're sure for each service. So for one, you have write delete if you're sure. For others, you have write delete if you're sure, and so on. So yeah, so in the end, there are a lot of aspects to technology choices, and also that brings that this somewhat of a tangent question on architecture. So architecture is this, I don't know, kind of hard thing to define, at least software architecture, but like a lot of terms in our domain, I believe, they're loosely defined. Like even DevOps started as a methodology, and currently there are a lot of titles with that. So yeah, but the trend I've been seeing and I personally subscribe to is that software architecture is it's not easy to change, so require the effort of one or more teams or departments to coordinate, and coordination takes time. So like you end up with having a meeting to decide that we will need another meeting where the final decision will be decided. Right. So, um, yeah, like I was saying, although the software landscape is huge and continues to grow, um, like everyone keeps building and publishing things, and that's fine. That's great. I think I also have planned to release a new version of a library that I've been working on. So yeah, I can't really complain about that. Um, but yeah, in the end, a lot of these are just uh, um, some first principles. So like, if we really think about it, a couldn't more than just a rock with been hidden into thinking. Um, so yeah, in the end, I think that it doesn't. Well, it there's also the um, tragedy of the commons where you're thinking about short-term success over long-term success. So yeah, knowing all the front-end frameworks that are hot right now might be might be useful short term in your career, but long term doesn't really matter. So I'm uh, um, a couple projects. I had to also do some um, um, data pipelines, and there were like 6 months where I've been more or less far away from the side of things. And I was afraid that uh, you know that train left the station for me because everything seems to be changing at a ever increasing pace. So yeah, but I got back to operations, and what do you know, things haven't really changed much. I mean, there were some other uh, things that were released, like um, um, Prometheus got to be like a managed service in AWS. Google decommissioned another of their products, so on. So yeah, um, history doesn't repeat, but it certainly rhymes most of the time. Um, yeah, so I believe that knowing exactly the currently hot frameworks really help much. And it's more of a ability to quickly and effectively upskill yourself, and yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it's important currently to have cloud experience, but knowing AWS or knowing Azure or knowing Google Cloud, that doesn't as much, because um, things in the end converge towards standardization. So, and especially for cloud providers, given that AWS was first to market by, I don't know, 7 years or so, most of the cloud providers that followed were more or less trying to replicate the cloud primitive that AWS already implemented, so that it was easier to it it would be easier for a customer to um, change providers. Yeah. So the most important things that I've seen and I believe are that it's really important to uh, know how to learn and always try to learn, but also making time to ensure that you're not um, over processing stuff. Um, and also always practicing the things you're learning and um, being part of a community where you can share and learn together. And the part where I also have to plug my employer, Tripular. Um, so at Tripular, we have these communities of practice where we get to hang out together every week or so, currently virtually. And this is a great opportunity for us to talk and share news and ideas and um, discuss approaches in our ongoing projects and so on. Um, Obviously, this isn't a new idea. Communities of practice, I believe, were mentioned also in stuff like um, uh, scaled agile and uh, um, other methodologies. But yeah, I think a lot of people found out that being surrounded by other people that also um, um, like to learn and like to share their learning makes it easier. And um, you know, that also you also have to give yourself permission to not um, jump through hoops to find out the latest tech trend or um, buying 10 technical books that were launched on O'Reilly Media in the last week or so, and all this stuff. So as long as you have um, a good grasp of um, first principles and being able to quickly learn and um, creating like a mental model of the new system that you're trying to understand, that that usually is more than enough. Yeah, and also some resources that I personally found very helpful. So the first three are um, a couple of books. So we have Tempo, which is a pretty short book, kind of. So about 170 pages. Decision making and yeah, kind of picking your battles. Anti-fragile talks about so it's from the author of Black Swan. I'm currently blanking on the author's name, but uh, yeah, and it talks about probability and fragile and anti-fragile systems. Like for instance, the current global supply chain is a very fragile system. It's very um, it's very fast, but like if there's, I don't know, a big boat that gets stuck in a canal, then the whole global supply chain is disrupted. So yeah, and also accelerate. I think this was also mentioned by Dave Farley in the talk before. This has been released a couple of years ago, but it's still very much relevant. And it's based on some very good research by Puppet Labs and some other folks. And yeah, in the end, also um, the channel Veritasium, and especially the video on learning styles, and the fact that there's not a single best learning style, but usually you want to combine visual learning with audio and so on. So like if you're reading a tutorial, you might as well go through the steps. But if you do that, you have to really try to grasp the subject, not just go through the motions there. Yeah, and I think this is pretty much all.
Hi, Bogdan. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. I think we're. I finished earlier, so yeah. I'm not sorry you're welcome, but yeah.
It's always that. I think that's always the question or the trade-off, whether we want to go for the, that's how we call it, the new shiny things, the cutting edge stuff, or then stick to, let's say, the road that we've already taken. And probably, like everything in software, the answer is it depends, because we need.
Yeah, especially. There's also the chooseboringtechnology.com. It's a website and kind of a movement. Also, there's this great I've been following for a lot of Charity Majors. She's the founder and CEO of Honeycomb.io, and she also speaks about innovation credits. So when you start a new project, be that in an existing company or an existing engagement, or a startup, a certain amount of innovation points. So if you're building something new, then you would probably be choosing some more well-trodden and boring, because you're already spending some of your innovation credits, energy, time, and so on, and on that particular thing. You don't have enough energy to also expand on. We're building a new AI, but also can we use this new GraphDB instead of or whatever for this particular use case?
And Bogdan, if you were to name some of the noises that you identified as noises and drop them, what would the list look like? your list, your individual personal list, in terms of technologies or trends or.
Oh, yeah, sure. This is the part where you want me to new enemies, right?
Not really. I mean,
And then
there's gonna be the two of us. So whatever you say, I'll say yes. Me too.
I don't know. Sorry, I was gonna say depends, but I think I've mentioned that enough times. Right. For me personally, I don't think that there's so noise more of something in the context of what you're trying to spend your time and energy on. So, for instance, if you're trying to learn databases, then you will probably need some time away from, I don't know, web design or whatever. Just throwing concepts here. So yeah, like I said, I was doing some building a while ago. So stuff that usually would interest me, like I know, whatever, Linux newsletters and articles and so on became noise, sort of. I feel like so I feel like the reasoning would be it depends, and also you have to contextualize the stuff you're doing and working on. So
You don't want to say
I'm
anything.
trying not to.
You're avoiding. Yeah.
Sorry.
So you don't want to say like a name or a technology, or you're
Right.
slightly
Definitely NFTs are trash, but yeah.
So, okay, then let me ask a different thing. So, what are your, I don't know, favorite technologies or languages or?
Well, for a long time, I've been a really big Python fanboy because that was the first language that I've used outside college. But I've been playing around with Go and Rust in the last couple of months, and yeah, I'm really enjoying Rust currently. Which I guess it adds to that cliche of how do you know a Rust developer or Rust enthusiast? They'll tell you.
Have you ever
Yeah.
felt like betrayed by your, I don't know, language or technology of choice? I mean,
Sorry.
have you ever felt like betrayed by your technology or language of choice? Like, so you jumped onto the hype, and then I don't know, 3 months after you said, "Well, it was a hype. It was just marketing. It doesn't deliver. It was
Oh
just
yeah.
noise."
Yeah, it's really annoying. Oh, you want an example? One sec. Oh, so there was some not very good choices. Like I don't know. I was working on some um, log processing stuff with Python, and was using pandas as the library for that because it's much faster, especially since pandas has C and some Fortran under the hood. So yeah. And I was having some problems with some data sets that were, I guess, too big, or I wasn't really processing them correctly. But at that moment, I didn't have enough experience under my belt with pandas to uh, really know that. And some strangers over the internet uh, pointed me towards Dask, which is um, a newer pandas-esque framework library for Python, which kind of uses pandas, or at least has a similar API. But that just brought more problems because well, pandas does um, dealing, and Dask does data processing, but uh, it's multi-threaded, so you then have to solve the murder mystery of uh, what's the thread that hasn't been closed or is locked, and so on. So that wasn't fun. Um,
It is fun. It is fun for us, because we're not the only
yeah.
ones who experience that, right? So it's good, and we're not alone. I think we've been doing that for a while, and probably we're gonna taste it in the future as well, unless we learn how to eliminate the noise and to.
I was actually smiling because I think I read this recently. When you're debugging, you're, you're like in a movie with a crime scene when you're both the detective and the murderer. So that's how it feels.
That's the story of our life as engineers. I would say. I don't know.
Um,
Maybe not for forever.
yeah, I feel that. Well, there's stuff like GitHub's Copilot now, which hopefully can help with some of this stuff. Um, One thing that I'm very mindful of doing when picking new technologies when joining a project, an existing project especially, is creating that sort of a um, lava pattern where each new person that joins the project brings a new technology and then they leave. So in the end, there's like this Frankenstein's monster of a code base like Perl and Java and PHP. And you also have some Scala sprinkled in. Yeah, that script's actually running in Python because, I don't know, just because. And you also have that Oracle DB, and you also have some Docker, but not Docker. You also have the LXC containers. So that's something that I'm really trying to be mindful of. Yeah.
All right. All right. So should we wrap it?
Yeah, we can wrap it up. I'm gonna also leave here with I very much like the thing you said about when you start a new project, you have a certain number of fixed innovation points that you're allowed to spend on new technologies, but then you also need to balance things out. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
what I take from this.
um, yeah, just a final example. I'm really bad at JavaScript. I mean, I dislike JavaScript, and it's a nightmare for me that currently everything seems to be running on JavaScript, from web to even IoT and embedded systems. That's just terrifying. But like, I would personally like to have a backend in Python, but I've recently started a new project, pet project. But yeah, I had to go for JavaScript because I was also writing the front end, so uh, I would rather have everything in the same language and have it easier to debug for myself than add a new problem into the mix.
Sometimes you have to do what you have to do with respect to languages. Well, again, thanks a lot, Bogdan. It was great chatting with you.
Same feeling here.